Welcome to the Whole Health Podcast,
where a functional nutritionist and a biological dentist investigate the interconnectedness of your health.
Let's get started. Welcome back to the Whole Health Podcast. Today, I am thrilled to welcome Ashley Koff, registered dietitian, to the show. I'm going to read a little bio, and then we're going to dive in. Okay. Ashley Koff is a USA Today bestselling author of Your Best Shot. I'm going to hold it up for YouTube. And founder of the Better Nutrition Program, an acclaimed weight health expert and practitioner for more than 25 years. Koff is leading a transformative movement in personalized nutrition, turning better, not perfect, choices into practical, sustainable strategies that deliver real outcomes. Your Best Shot introduces weight health hormones, which we're talking a lot about these days, as the regulators of weight health, offering the first ever assessment of their function and a personalized optimization system, shot or not. That's important. A trusted expert featured across major media and sought-after educator for health professionals, Ashley has been recognized as one of CNN's top 100 health makers and featured in InStyle as Hollywood's leading dietitian.
Wow.
That's a big deal. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. InStyle. I've arrived.
Yeah.
There you go. Yes. Hi, guys.
Hi.
So good.
You're a busy lady, so it means a lot that you took the time to be here with us today. And congratulations on your book.
Thank you. Busy lady, too busy. Game recognizes game right here. Yeah. So it's good. But thank you. Yes.
This book is pivotal and really important right now as a practicing clinician. The conversation around these GLP-1s and all of the different versions of weight loss injectables right now is confusing for a lot of people. It is bringing important attention to weight health. And what I love about your book is it really gets into the science of what we've been missing. Mm-hmm. But I wondered if you could start with talking a little bit about your personal journey, because that led you down this path. So can you give us some background?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I don't want to ruin it for people who read the book and get the full story, but I'm also not unique. I think that, most Americans have battled their weight, whether they've battled excess weight or not had excess weight. But what was really interesting to me, and certainly in hindsight, was to realize that the first, I'll call it like 15 to 20 years of my life, I was always battling my belly because society had said, hey, your weight is an issue, society and doctors, so bullies, et cetera. But then, of course, in the medical side, but the interesting thing was they were always like, but good on you, you're healthy. You don't have any health issues. Meanwhile, I was taking antibiotics, literally all the time for ear infections, for throat infections. Then it was, you have difficult periods, so why don't we put you on birth control? Then it was, it's like boom, boom, boom. But I was always deemed healthy. And so that world of weight and weight management and weight loss as the way to do it, and then diet and exercise as the tools on one side, and then health over here, and not decoding that my body was really showing me all these signals. So when I say I'm not unique in this space, I tried every diet under the sun. So it was Weight Watchers and Jenny Craig, and some of them would work. I have photos. I'm like, oh, I remember that year I fit into that dress, or whatever. But it was not ever a lasting working. It was never this is how I nourish my body. Where I am totally unique was that after one too many diets, I ended up meeting a woman in yoga class. I was a macrobiotic vegan in Manhattan who didn't drink and was 21 and doing yoga twice a day. And she's like, you have a belly. I had a belly. And I'm like, oh, wow. But you don't have a belly anymore. And she's like, yeah, I can heal you. So anyway, I went to her house, let her prick my finger and look at my blood. I'm sure it was a Fisher-Price microscope. And she was like, you have a worm. That's what has happened. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I know it sounds absolutely crazy. But when you have tried everything and somebody's like, well, it's a worm. I'm like, yes, it's a worm. Let's kill the worm. So I ended up doing a goat's milk cleanse, which, spoiler alert, did not work for me. So it didn't work because I actually didn't have a worm. So that was also those two pieces. And so then I did what everyone does. And I went to the bar and I was like, tequila, shots, worm. And I also was like, I'm going to be a stand-up comedian. I'm like, I can be funny and I can be fat and I'm just like done. Like I literally was like, that's where life is going. going. And this guy in the bar was like trying to eat a burger and probably ignore me. Like, he's like, can you shut up, you know? And I'm up at the bar telling the story. Everybody's like, kill the worm, like drinking, whatever. And he comes over and he's like, so did you, it was 2:00 in the afternoon also, I should say. But he was like, did you ever take antibiotics? And I'm like in my stand-up comedian mode. And I was like, I freebase them, you know? Anyway, he gave me his card. He was not trying to pick me up. He was like, I think I can help you. And I think knowing, like later, I was like, I think I found hope again. Like, you know, you just do. You just decide like, maybe I will try again. Probably also because my insurance covered him. So I was like, okay, I can, you know, something to pay for it. Anyway, he was a gastroenterologist, but at that time period, he was also so novel as an integrative, you know, trained integratively or root cause. And he never asked me about my weight. And I think that, like, that moment, I think back to, like, just think about every doctor's appointment you've had, like BMI, weight, you know, or like sometimes they have people who meet you at the front and they take your weight even before you've met the doctor, right? And it's like, so you're just in this, like, my identity and how people perceive me is about that number. That's the answer there was he basically started in was like, Ashley, it's not what you're eating or what you're not eating, but it's that your body doesn't have what it needs to run better. And I remember in that moment, and I think since, like, as I've gotten better at talking about it, it's kind of like dawned on me where we are with weight loss is like if you go out and your car doesn't start and there's like gas and you're like, okay, I know I've got gas in the tank and oil and, you know, and air in the tires. You don't go out and like drain your car of all the gas and be like, does it start now? You know what I mean? It's like, no, you look under the hood and maybe they're like check engine lights, or in my case, you call someone to look under the hood because I have no idea what's going on there. And I realized, like, in weight loss, like, we've been, like, manipulating all these different ideas around diet and exercise and all these ways that, like, not only is it yours to manage and that whole space, but it's also, like, we haven't been looking under the hood, right? Mm-hmm. And in little ways we look under the hood. We'll be like, oh, take a probiotic or, oh, you know, that kind of thing. But I'm talking really looking under the hood. Yeah. So for me, where we are today was, you know, that was what made me become a dietitian. A couple years later, I was working with bariatric patients. It was 2004. And I remember seeing patients that, like, overnight who have battled what we call morbid obesity, right? Who have battled that and have been trying all these different diets. Overnight, we were seeing reversal in blood sugar, overnight diabetes changing, overnight changes with how they thought about food, et cetera. And a doctor kind of flippantly said to me, yeah, it's the incretin effect. There was no Google. Facebook had just like come on the market. I'm like, what is incretins? And I realized that we had these hormones that regulate and tell insulin to go to work, or they tell leptin and ghrelin, the hormones, you know, we all know around satiety. And what we know even more today is they tell, like, they direct inflammation, they direct, like, all, you know, bone formation, fat location, like all of this different stuff. That's GLP-1 and GIP. So when I learned that, that's what made me really successful as a dietitian, you know, from 2005 on, to be able to help people optimize those hormones. But I was never using an agonist. So when GLP-1s came on the market, the fact that they were being touted as a solution and not talked about as a hormone replacement therapy was like, what is going on? And so that's the only thing that could have, like, brought me out of, like, hiding in Maine to, like, write a book and go on book tour. And so here I am. Like, so it's, you asked, it's a long story on that part. But the trajectory of it, I think, makes a lot of sense because I think a lot of people today are really interested in a GLP-1 agonist, but may not even know what, or they might be using one, but may not even know what it is. And as a result, how it actually should be working in their body. Yeah.
It's so true.
But I got to ask.
Yeah, I know.
Because some people, probably like me, like, what does GLP and GIP stand for, and what's their physiologic significance?
Great. So you really don't need to know what they stand for. So we'll just, like, you could, it's like we've got glucagon-like peptide and the GIP is like a long phrase on that part. We have PYY, we have CCK. You can meet all of them in my book, or you can look them up online. What you want to know about is they are peptide hormones. So they're made from, when you hear peptide, you should think protein. So they're made from amino acids, and they live in the lining of our digestive tract. And if I put out a series of dominoes that was where the goal, the end of, like, when all the dominoes fall, your blood sugar works, then those GLP-1 and GIP are like the first domino. So we've been looking at like insulin and everything forward. We've said, oh, are you insulin resistant? Let's try to get your insulin to work better. But we haven't come over and said, is your GLP-1 or GIP working better? Because it literally, its only job, it switches on for 2 to 5 minutes when it's activated. Its job is to go tell those hormones to go to work. So what's interesting, though, is it doesn't just tell them for blood sugar or for weight loss. The medications were designed just for blood sugar. That's all they thought was going to happen. They thought, we are going to help people with diabetes. They help people with diabetes, and all of a sudden people with diabetes are like, oh my gosh, I'm not so hungry. Oh, interesting. My brain that was always thinking about food isn't thinking about food. Then really weirdly, it would be like my blood pressure is getting better. And then even weirder, my inflammation was getting better. So what these medications have actually done is exposed a network of hormones that we were not evaluating, we weren't considering. And it's also exposed that the body is an ecosystem. So these hormones tell a variety of different things to go to work. It's not just if you have a blood sugar issue, work on insulin. It's like, oh, work on your GLP-1, your GIP. Yeah.
I have a lot of people that come into the clinic, and we do a lot in hormones at our clinic, right? So I'll have patients that have seen us for years that maybe they're using hormone replacement therapy post-menopausally, right? And then they'll say, and my metabolism has gone to heck, and but I'm not going to be on a GLP-1 because I just don't believe in medications. And it always brings to the front center of my mind how poorly we're talking about what these actually are. Because as you just said, we're doing a better job about educating around other hormones and why we might replace them in midlife. But these act as hormones, and they do decrease throughout our life as well. So with all of that in mind, and you obviously felt like this was so misunderstood that you needed to write a book about it. Thank you for doing that, because it's the wild, wild west out there right now. So you're a person that has never had great metabolic health, let's say, or maybe it's just shifted for you, and you're wondering if these are the right drugs for you. This book is a guide, certainly, and you've got some very novel ways for people to assess what they need. But what are you worried about in the GLP-1 or this space right now?
I'm worried about the amount of money that is in pharmaceutical sales and advertising. When we look at like the sales of this drug alone exceeded the GDP of a country, right? So with Norway. So when we look at that and we look at advertising and we look at the messaging is only coming from one place, right? And I think there's reactive messaging as well from other places. As you said, there are people who are like, those things are horrible. Like, we do not know what's going to happen. Honestly, the first medication was around in 2005. And since we know what your own hormones do, but there's a big difference. So this is the one that I want people to know. So when we talk about hormone replacement therapy, if you are a type 1 diabetic and you don't make insulin or you stop making insulin, you need insulin to live, right? So that is and insulin is a peptide hormone. So we understand what hormone replacement therapy is. That's what it is. We give you insulin. If your body starts to, like maybe for us perimenopausal women, like one day my estrogen shows up, one day it doesn't, like whatever. So we might use and nuance that and, and try it in that way. But those are what we call bioidentical. So those are they're going to go to the receptor sites in the body. So the body has locations that are just those points of activation. So you arrive there and it's like, okay, boom, now everything can happen. And so in that space, when that happens, they work exactly the way our body's own would work. The difference with the GLP-1 medications is that, and we're going to talk about two differences, but the difference of the current ones that are biosimilar hormone replacement therapy is they're biosimilar. Our own hormones only stay on for 2 to 5 minutes. That's a motion detector, right? These hormones stay on for a full day, so that's 24 hours. That's a lot of minutes. I don't know how many. But then, or they stay on for 7 24-hour days, which is way lot more of minutes, right? In that part. So one of the things for us to understand is like just think for a second, like if you had a motion detector at your house and you pay your electrical bill based on how often the motion detector's on. Let's just say it goes on for 5 minutes, 6 times in the day. I can do that math. That's 30 minutes. But now let's say you leave town and you accidentally leave it on and you go away for a week and you leave it on for 7 days. So now I'm paying a different energy bill, right? That's what's happening when we're on a medication. That is a consideration. That is not a con. That is not a negative. And there might be total pros in the situation. The pro could be, what if all these receptor sites in your body now having this hormone means that they all light up, like they're all working, like blood flow's working, brain's working, like all this different stuff. So our job is to figure out like what's going to happen when it stays on that long, right? So you asked a question, which is, what am I afraid of? I'm afraid of what is happening. So number one, they're being sold with the outcome of weight loss, and they're being measured, which drug is better is being measured on which drug helps someone lose weight faster. Faster weight loss is never better on that part. The second thing is we turn around and we go, okay, these are drugs that are going to help somebody who's diabetic. So then they're just looking at a person who's diabetic and they're saying, you should go on this medication because of your diabetes. And they're evaluating you as a diabetic based on your hemoglobin A1C, which is a 90-day average, which isn't even telling me what your blood sugar is doing in the moment. So in those two spaces, we're getting evaluated with poor data, like the existing model that just isn't better. We are a whole person, and our blood sugar is going, there are 40 factors that impact our blood sugar, not just our food, right? So we've got to understand what's driving all of that. And weight loss is not the goal, and faster weight loss isn't the better goal. So I think that's one big concern. The second big concern, I would say the second biggest concern is that if you go on this and you're thinking about it as a solution instead of thinking about it as a tool, you're also really running a dangerous space of when it works as intended, not side effects, as intended, it is going to delay your gastric emptying, 7 days worth of delaying, et cetera on that part, even at weaning amounts. Great. If I can help you, okay, great. But if I don't, and here's the kicker, what if your digestion wasn't better before? Which is like 99.2% of our patients. Yes. Like I just got off a plane, my digestion is not better, like that kind of a thing. And then I think the third one in that space is understanding that if we go on the medication and we don't fix anything underneath, we have to stay on it. But that is the same as every single drug that is out there. Nobody, I don't think, goes to their doctor, sees that their cholesterol is elevated, gets recommended a statin medication, and is told, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you on that statin medication. We're going to keep increasing it until we see they're going to do that. We're going to keep increasing it until we see your cholesterol go down. And then from the time that your cholesterol is down, we're going to put you on the clock for about a year. You're going to stay on that medication, and then we're going to take you off of it. And just good luck, Johnny. Like, hope your cholesterol stays low, right? That's not the way medications work. And so we're talking about this medication because it's in this weight loss world as this like, oh my gosh, either you have to stay on the medication, or when you come off the medication, shame on you, you gained all of your weight back, like those kinds of things. So what am I worried? I'm worried about a ton. I'm also super optimistic. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm so glad you brought up all of those things.
Yes.
They kind of keep me up at night.
Yeah.
And I think the question comes up constantly clinically, like, if I start this, do I have to be on it forever? Right? It's a phenomenal tool for bridging the gap of, willpower and all of these things. So you can shift all of those underlying factors. But I'm also interested in your perspective on, you talked about fast weight loss, right?
Yeah.
Some of my patients, I don't prescribe this, but I work with people that it's prescribed to, have a pretty quick response to a pretty low dose.
Yeah.
And they're maybe eating 700-800 calories a day, right? And they feel great. And you're like, okay, well, that's not sustainable, right? So for the people that are on these for 2, 5, 10 years, right? And it is suppressing their appetite and potentially shifting their metabolism. What are the concerns you might have in the more longevity space and aging space for somebody that's been on a caloric deficit indefinitely?
Yeah, and I don't do a lot in calories because I just find like the number is just meaningless and like the whole concept of the day. But I think what you're getting at is like in that space of if somebody is not like getting in enough for their body, right?
Exactly.
So the reason weight loss is a problematic tool, it was the example of the car is the perfect example. You don't want to, if your body is, if your body has a belly, if your body is putting fat where it doesn't belong in the liver, visceral fat, if your body isn't making making bone, if your body isn't making muscle, like if your body isn't putting water inside the cells and it's leaving it outside the cells, those are all signals for us to decode, right? The way we fix those is not by reducing resources, right?
Right.
It's just like, it's so dumb. It's like, it's so simple and so dumb. And I can't believe we're like 2 centuries into this, you know what I mean? Right. Or maybe even longer, right? It's like, whew, like there's someone like on another planet just laughing, you know, like laughing at us on that part. No, I don't believe in, like, we don't have to get into all that, but I was just referencing. Okay.
Aliens
so,
for
yeah,
another
aliens,
day.
like aliens on another day. So I think in, you know, that space, I think you hit the nail on the head, which is where we will see failure, cold stop, hard stop, whatever the expression is if we suboptimally resource the body. So the body is turning around and it is saying, I am an operating system. That's it. And I need to have what I want, what I can use, when I need it, where I need it, and then I need to know that I can actually use it, right? Yeah. So the sole purpose of total nutrition, food or supplements going into your body, is to actually resource the body. Mm-hmm. Pleasure and other things, absolutely. But if we look at like really why do we eat? Why do we call things essential? For the nutrients that the body needs. So at 700 calories, there aren't many people that can actually meet their body's needs. Now, I'm going to say something that might be a little bit provocative here, but why not go there? I also can appreciate just how miserable the diet culture has made so many of us, right? Like so many, like to just feel like it's so disempowered when you're trying and like all these different things. And you know, so if somebody comes in and they're like, okay, I'm on this medication and I love that, like, I never think about food. Yeah. And I actually, like, one woman said to me, she's like, Ashley, food is like, I'm in an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. Like, if I could literally just never eat. And I was like, okay. So year 1, I'm talking about a whole year that I've been her dietitian and we have not talked about her food. She was like, if you tell me what to eat or have to change anything or whatever, I'm walking out that door. And I said, okay. I said, but here's the thing. I'm looking at your labs. These things are issues. You are somebody who's had cancer before. You are at a certain age. We're trying to, I was like, do you want to be thin, but like drooling in a you know, rest home or whatever and not able to remember anyone? And she's like, okay, if you put it that way, no. Like, I really want to like have my marbles with me. I said, okay. So for her, we've like MacGyvered up this whole set of different supplements. And I'm like, all right, like that's what she wants to do, right? Now, what I'll tell you is somewhere around like 6 or 8 months in, she's turned the corner to where she's like, oh, like, you'll never believe this, but I had protein for breakfast. And I was like, okay, and I was like, well, remember, like, there's no food in nature, it's a protein. And she's like, shut up, I had eggs. And I was like, got it, like, noted, because she usually would just have her plain coffee. So she's getting there, but she's like, so the tool is helping in that space. And so what I think doesn't help is for us to come in and say, like, it's kind of like when you talk to, like, sometimes I'm talking to a 20-year-old and I will talk to them about, well, what your body's going to feel like at 40 or 50. And they look at me and they're like, I'm never going to be you. Like, I'm just like, it's never, really right? True. On that part. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, let me put it in perspective now. Like, you're not going to be able to pay your bills. And they're like, oh, got it. Like, now I understand, because I'm trying to juggle that. So I think in that space, that's kind of what we want to lean into. And I think the second part of it is, and I have this lovely chapter called Shit to Unlearn. Yes. And in Shit to Unlearn, it's about how all of these recommendations that are based on your daily consumption are all just wrong for us. Totally. So the other part of it is, even if somebody's at 700 or 800 calories, I start off with having them get in the quality of their calorie and then splitting those up into hopefully somewhat balanced, like 3 times in the day. So one of the things we want to avoid with the medication is going all day and not eating and then eating just at night on that part.
Yeah, absolutely. I could monopolize the whole conversation.
Oh, no, you're doing, this is so not my world.
Yeah.
But it is. One of the things that's so interesting is we have receptor sites for this on our tongue. So when we think about the oral microbiome, right? Like, in that space, like, there's so much. What percent of the population would you just hazard to guess has maybe a less healthy oral microbiome than?
In my practice?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, in your practice, but also you go, when you go on book tour, if we're taking the toxic teeth around the country, you're interacting with people. And how many people, I'm not going to say it's the whole root cause, but how many people, some component of what they've got going on is what's going on in their mouth.
A lot.
Yeah. So what's so interesting about that is ground zero for your weight health. So that to me is what's like, it's fascinating because number one, there are a lot of things that we can do in the name of better oral health that are actually bad for our weight health and even bad for our oral health, right? So we could take in, trying to think of like a mouthwash, and the mouthwash had,
Listerine.
right? Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that.
Paradise.
So when we're doing that, we're actually altering the microbiome, on that part, right? I focus a lot with people on if you're, I have people bite into an apple, and if an apple doesn't taste sweet to them on a scale of 1 to 10, then I'll just say to them, your sweet taste buds aren't working the way that they should, because an apple should actually be at least a 7. It doesn't have to be a 10, and I know in our modern world, there are things that are, thousands and thousands of times sweeter, and that's the point. But when you notice that your sweet taste buds are out of whack, then we have to start looking at, okay, what's going on for my oral microbiome? What's going on for my gut microbiome? And maybe it's also I gave up sugar, which I thought was better for my teeth, better for everything. But I'm over here having like monk fruit and stevia in everything that I'm consuming, right? So I think that, for me, I love the dentistry oral health side of it, because anywhere where I can get somebody to think about their weight health in a way that is not a scale and how their pants fit, like actually gives us an entry point on that. So I think it's actually the most of your, so if we back up and say 9 in 10 Americans do not meet the criteria for metabolic health, we're basically saying everybody. So everybody needs to be looking at their weight health and their weight health hormones, and the mouth is a starting point. Yeah.
It's so fascinating.
It's certainly, as we recently got an in-body scanner to help people appreciate that, like, yes, you're at the dentist, and your mouth is connected to your body, and
yes,
let's kind of take a look through a different lens,
right?
For sure.
So we talked about things that you're concerned about.
Yeah.
When these medications hit the market, and well, let's even say they hit the market, but that was actually very targeted for, like you said, diabetics, right?
Yeah.
Then they evolved into an everybody drug, really, class of drugs. What are you excited about?
Yeah. Well, and I'm, you referenced my InStyle moment. Somebody who practiced in Los Angeles like for 15 years, and continues to work with people in the entertainment industry and other places. What is interesting is that there has always been an obsession with what are the different ways that I can get thin and stay thin, right? But now we're actually able to have this conversation about weight health. So I'm like, hey, I understand you want to look a certain way. And by the way, like not just somebody who's in front of a camera, we all want to look a certain way. And when I want to look that way, but I also want to know if inside your body is feeling better. So I'm able to bring that weight health conversation in. I mean, I've had a lot of people who have said like, oh my gosh, Ozempic has taken over Hollywood and Hollywood is way too thin. I have seen Hollywood way too thin, for so long. And it was usually like Adderall, or not eating or cocaine or like whatever. And now we have something that's like a hormone replacement therapy. And can it be abused? Absolutely, right? Yeah. On that part. But for me, it was really during COVID. And I think for a lot of people coming out of COVID, it was a really great tool. The other interesting part is we're seeing that how this medication is working in that same area of the brain. So food noise and appetite and cravings, not actual hunger on that part, is all in this part of the brain around addiction. And so some people said, like, I have no interest in alcohol, right? Yeah. So that's been really helpful, or, other pieces. And I even am working with patients who, with their clinicians who have a true eating disorder, which shows you that it's biochemical, that it's not about, hey, we're trying to get you to lose weight, because there we're trying to actually have the body, achieve a healthy weight. I am super excited about the fact that when done right, I am seeing these medications help people come off of like 10 and 12 other medications,
Absolutely.
right? And really flip to being empowered in how they make their own choices, not disempowered. So leaning in and being like, oh, I actually know that on day 1 and day 2, I might feel a little bit more, like a lot of times it really delays your stomach and digestion in that time period. So they're like, okay, I can't have as much fiber there, but then I really need the fiber on, the other days, et cetera. And then I've got this whole other, for me, it's about generational weight health. I am seeing parents who feel like they're not demonstrating and role modeling drama diets to their kids. They're actually leaning in and are like, I get a lot of critique out there that like, oh, my patient who's on Ozempic is now ordering the pizza when they were ordering the salmon and the vegetables before. Well, if you actually like the pizza and the pizza is, I have my delicious scale, the pizza is delicious to you. I'm not saying like have pizza every day, although I do have a character in the book that ate pizza every day. But, I think on that part, it's if you didn't like the salmon, if you ate the salmon and the broccoli because you felt like that's what you were supposed to have, and then you went home and had a pint of ice cream, or you just were unhappy, like ongoing, then to me, it's like, what if you could show your kids, hey, I love having pizza and I feel full after 2 slices of pizza, and we can all have pizza. Right? Like on that part. And that actually brings us into an area where, my whole reason for being and mission in this part is what if, as a 7-year-old, between 7 and 8, if at age 8, my doctor had said not, hey, you have a belly, you need to lose weight, everything else is good. He'd said, hey, your belly is a signal for us, and it's telling me that something in your body isn't working better. So what we're going to do is we're going to work on that, and here's that plan. And there's nothing wrong with you, and it's not yours to manage, but we're going to work together. I get chills on that part because I think about like not having done a goat's milk cleanse. That'd be a starter, But I also think about like, just so much unhealthy stuff, and it sticks with you, for a long time. And then I also am really, really excited. And I think this is a little more female than male, but I'm going to lean into the guys on it too. Perimenopause, menopause, let's just call it life in our 50s. Like I'm 52 now. I think like probably around like 44 or 45, like the belly was starting, and then you're like, oh, this isn't happening. And I I got every tool under the, in my toolkit, all these other things. And when that wasn't working and I was like, whoa, like this is not okay. I really feel like the ability for people to lean in and say, as I'm looking at this whole hormonal redistribution, that I can, if I'm a guy and I'm seeing that my testosterone is going down, and I'm thankfully with a practitioner who's also looking at my free testosterone and sex hormone binding globulin, or I'm a woman and I'm also looking at that, I'm saying, wait a second, okay, it may be testosterone, but equally important for fat, muscle, bone, water, energy, all the other things are these other hormones. So can we have like a better hormonal approach? So I think it's like upending how we do healthcare, which is really the only reason I felt like you need a playbook. I also will say this. I really think, and maybe the thing I'm the most excited about, I am what I call a backwards, or it's actually what the kids call a backwards doctor. So instead of being DR, I'm RD. You and I have had this conversation, right? So the 5-year-old was like, you're a backwards doctor. I'm like, oh, yes, my nephew. And we've had this conversation, like no matter what you know about nutrition, unless you are a nutrition practitioner, unless that is your day job to practice. I don't call myself a clinician because I think clinicians are often like just using clinical research and turning around and saying, here's clinically what I would advise. I practice every day. And the people I practice with know that like, I'm here to partner with you and we're going to just see what your unique body is going to show up as. This weight health conversation belongs in the space of practicing nutritionists.
Yes.
Not all of them are trained well, the same way or well or whatever in this space, but we need to be there. And so probably one of the things I'm the most excited about is, yes, there are books written by doctors and they talk about what a GLP-1 is and et cetera, and maybe they put recipes in there, but they have things like, make sure you have X amount of grams of protein, make sure you have X amount of grams of fiber. That's not how we do this. No. We practice and we help you figure out what your body needs. So one of the other places I'm super excited about is just the yay nutritionists. We've got like this. I mean, this has always been our space, but I think it's been harder to say you should refer, on that part. And here it's like, if you don't refer, like your patient's outcomes are your problem, not your patient's.
Absolutely.
On that part.
And I feel like anytime a doctor writes a script for a GLP-1, it should be in tandem with that referral. It's pretty essential because it's the wild, wild west with how people are, how they're going to respond, and how they're going to move through that use and then out of that use if ever they're going to go off of these medications, and with the proper support, you really can have so much success.
Yeah.
One of the things I do want to just expand on a little bit is the perimenopausal, menopausal side of things. Sorry, Kelly, we're just going to...
Kelly's like, great,
I live this. I live this.
Oh, wait, you're married? What are you talking about?
Yes. Exactly.
It's a thing. And I think it can feel like a very disempowering time for women. And one of the things that we haven't talked about is the quite low doses. I'm not always going to call them micro doses, right? Because they're not always micro doses. Sometimes they're just very low
almost
doses.
never micro doses.
Yeah, they're just almost never a microdose.
Yeah.
A microdose you generally wouldn't feel at all, right? Maybe you'll have anti-inflammatory effects or this or that, but it will not be affecting your appetite typically. But the lower doses long-term for people that maybe aren't in a situation where they're in a weight health crisis, but they have put on 10 pounds. The food noise is controlling their life. And there's a conversation around, just like, what happened to my body? What is going on, right? One of the things that I would love for you to touch on is how that triggers metabolism differently. Yeah. Even if you're eating sort of the same amount of food.
Yeah. Get out of my head, because that's my I'm always like, oh, it's so cool to see who showed up today in your body, like that kind of thing. Yeah. But I think that it is so disempowering to ever feel like your body is changing and you don't know how to nourish your body. And the added part is, by the time we reach somewhere in our 40s, and totally appreciating that many women will go through perimenopause earlier than that. So just using an arbitrary window, 40s, 50s, whatever. We emotionally are kind of over it. I don't know about you, but I really stopped caring. In my 30s, I kind of cared a little bit about what other people thought. In my 40s, I was not really, but maybe, whatever. And now by 50s, not at all. And I think in that space, you're trying to have that, but then you're also but my body is kind of betraying me. I just don't know, So it is like puberty, but in puberty, somebody else took care of us all the time, right? You know what I mean? And it was
true.
In our and you're not necessarily going through it at the same time as your friend, or maybe you're not supposed to talk about it, all of these different things. And then do you and your partner talk about it? Do you not talk about it? Sometimes it's just that's the time that you live in different places. I've had all these, different conversations with women and men. And so I think one of the things for us to understand is that when hormones shift, let's use our sex hormones, which it kind of devalues them to call them sex hormones, but I think that's the easiest way. But estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone, when those shift normally any day in our lives, they throw digestion off course. So one of the reasons that we have challenges throughout our menstruating life around our period that are different than, say, later on in the month of the cycle, is that they're throwing our digestion off course. So that interaction right there, and we now know there are estrogen receptors in the gut, right? So we've got on that part. So if they are they're sitting there going hey, what about me? And your body's oh, I put a little bit of estrogen over in the heart or the brain because I felt like it deserved it more, and you're the gut is unhappy. So all that stuff starts to change. And so it really is when the gut changes. And remember, we give too much credit these days from a nutrition standpoint that it's the food that makes you healthy. It's the food being digested, which includes the breakdown, the absorption, the delivery, and getting where it's supposed to go. That's what makes it healthy in your body, because we're just an operating system, right? So it needs to get where it's supposed to go. So for any woman or man, when your hormones shift, what thyroid, whether it's any of these things, they are going to impact digestion on that part. Now, when you play around with then adding hormones in that space, that's also going to impact digestion. So what we're doing is we're really changing what your weight health hormones can do in that time period. Yes, they may have been suboptimally functioning before, and that may show up more. So I have a lot of women will say to me, well, I never had a weight issue, and then all of a sudden, I put on 5 pounds, and I'm battling my belly, and I'm 47 or whatever. And I said, so you had a weight health issue. You've had a weight health issue for decades now. Your bones are telling us that story. Inflammation is telling us that story. But you were able to eat and exercise, and maybe your digestion was in a place where all things seemingly worked, and you didn't really experience a belly fat issue, right? And so they didn't perceive themselves as having a weight issue. So we unpack that. And I'm like, okay, so now what's happening is perimenopause is going to show you, and menopause is going to show you exactly what's going on under there, right? Yeah. So I think the worst thing that a woman can do is, and all the things that I leaned into doing, I shortened the window. I was like, I'm just going to have coffee until about noon, and maybe add a little MCT in there, and I'm going to tighten the window, and then I'm going to further suboptimally resource my body at a time. Oh, and I'm also going to choose more fiber and all these healthy foods at a time my digestion was not not feeling great, et cetera. And then I'm not sleeping well, number one, because of the hormones, but also number two, because my digestion hasn't gotten through all this stuff. Hot mess.
Totally.
Like, just on that part, right?
We've all been there.
Yeah.
Even as nutrition professionals,
Yeah.
because there's a desperation that kicks in where you're like, I don't know, I'll just do anything at this point.
Yes. And I feel like I will just own that I felt like it was worse, because then I sat there and was like, well, and now I feel like a professional failure.
Totally.
Like nobody else, like I was doing this mountain climb and all these people are like falling apart on the mountain, like, can't poop in 2 months, like I'm vomiting, like all this time. It was a tough endurance event. But when I was doing it, I literally said to all of them, I'm like, but this is so much worse for me because I'm the nutritionist. Like, it's like, and I was like, wait a second, like I'm a human body that, But I think in that space, we feel like if we just manipulate our nutrition, and it's not our nutrition, it's the looking under the hood, on that part.
Yeah. Certainly.
Yeah.
Who do you want to read this book? Who was this written for?
Well, definitely whoever was interacting with my 8-year-old self, like that, the doctors. I'm blunt about that. I think that this is a time period. Look, doctors, I am never going to blame you. Well, my dad's a doctor. I blame them for some things, but I'm just kidding. But I think in that space, I'm not going to be like, you're not knowing about nutrition is somebody else's weight health issue. None of that stuff. But I think we have the opportunity today. We're being gifted the opportunity to reimagine what we do with our patients and how we think about our patients' health. And that really is around weight health. So I wrote it for doctors. And I actually legitimately was just going to self-publish a book for doctors because I teach doctors and I train, and I was like, that's perfect on that part. But then I realized, okay, we are a society that is not well. 9 in 10 don't meet the criteria for metabolic health. And we are going about it all the wrong way. So this book is for everybody else, right? And the only people I have a note in there for somebody who's like, I feel like I'm metabolically healthy now. I'm like, great. I don't have a crystal ball. You may stay that way. You may not. But in any, these are the things you could still look at and learn to evaluate, I think on that part. And then the kind of side effect of writing the book is I kind of wish that both the pharmaceutical makers of these medications, the companies that are selling whether they're selling the pharmaceuticals or a compounded version, and they're selling it with just access to a doctor that you never see that writes the script and you get mailed this on that part. And, there's this whole ecosystem there where I hope all of them actually read this and are like, hey, there are ways we could do this better. I think that's a key piece for me.
Yeah, this is such
I think that's everyone.
I think you just nailed everyone.
Not my dog.
That's
this
is such a leveled up approach to weight health. It just really, really is. It's a guide. I don't think it exists even in 1/10 of the thoroughness that you have been able to bring. And it's very approachable. It is something that a clinician, a practitioner can use, a doctor can use, but anybody could read this book and really use it as a guide. And there is an evaluation in here. And I think that's the really big thing, because personalized nutrition, this is what we live for, right?
Right.
It is not the same for everyone. So to understand how to use this book, there's a tool that really literally will tell you, okay, now what next? And it's powerful and profound. I'm really appreciative that you brought this to the world. We need it.
You can be my publicist anytime.
I can't wait to read it now.
I know. I'm excited.
It's fantastic.
Yes, thank you.
So to wrap up today's show, we always like to ask, what does whole health mean to you?
Yeah. That one's super easy for me, because when we think about the whole person in that space, or I was talking about weight health, I always think about, do you remember Trivial Pursuit?
Oh,
do you guys remember? Okay, got it. Okay. So Trivial Pursuit, it was like you had all these different pies that were all the different colors. And if you say you got the green early, I feel like I always did. And then if you kept getting green questions, you're like, I need the orange, right? Or I need the red or whatever. And it's like, okay, those are those different ones. So when I think about whole health, it's about coming in and being like, you've got all those different triangles, and we have to come in and figure out what's the missing piece for you. Like, how do we, if for your operating system to run better, what's not working? And if we keep doubling down on something that's already working, and we don't explore, something else on that part, we're not going to get there. Yeah.
So great.
Whole
what a
health.
great visual.
Trivial Pursuit.
Yeah,
that's what I want.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks
it was
for
really
having
fun. And
me.
everybody go out and check out Your Best Shot by Ashley Koff. It is really a phenomenal book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Whole Health Podcast.
If you enjoyed what you heard today, please follow us on social media and wherever you listen to podcasts.
You can find out more about us at thewholehealthpodcast.com.
You can find me on my website, blodgettdentalcare.com.
And you can find me at bioloungepdx.com or learn more about my organic soluble fiber supplement, Fluorosophy, at thinkfluorosophy.com.
We look forward to seeing you next time.